It's billed as the brightest LED soft panel ever made. Perhaps a rental-only item for many, the 2,000-watt Profoto ProPanel 3x2 sports an IP65 rating, 4-zone pixel mapping, and a range of 2000K to 15,000K CCT. Is this the one light to rule them all? I don't know, but let's turn this off before I make my neighbors angry.
CineD, your digital cinema tech resource, supported by B&H and CVP.
First, let's take a moment to look back at a bit of soft panel light history for those lovable lighting nerds out there like myself. For me, and I expect for many other cinematographers, the 200-watt Airy Sky panel, first launched in 2015, was a transformative light in our careers. At the time, it felt like it had everything: RGB color, ample accessories, a relatively low power draw, and a wide range of features that meant physical gels were perhaps a thing of the past. Sky panels were expensive, but they dominated the major film markets upon emergence. When you wanted a soft panel LED light, you asked for a sky panel. Now, things are different for Airy in the entire film industry. There is an opening for others to find a spot at the top of the LED lighting segment in commercials, film, and television. Among those vying for that spot, there are now many low-cost LED lighting companies, making it a much more crowded segment. Lighting engineers have now had over a decade to try to replicate the specs and success of the OG Sky panel. Alongside all of this innovation and copying others' innovation, there has also been fluctuations in the number of platforms, crew sizes, and how many projects make it from green light to the finish line. With the industry in such flux these days, I must pose the question if a $14,999 LED soft panel light has a place in that top tier, when the suits that pull the purse strings are pulling even tighter in these uncertain times. Impressive 2,000-watt punch aside. So, is the output worth the input of your hard-won dollars? Let me list a few of the key specs of the 3x2 that stood out for me, and then we'll unpack it all. 2,000 watts, we gotta start there. IP65, RGB WW LED engine, integrated ballast, CCT range 2000K to 15,000K, 16-bit dimming from 0.1% to 100%, light modes, CCT, HSI, RGB, W, XY, gels, and effects. 120-degree beam angle, app control, Profoto control app, Android or iOS, 5-pin DMX/RDM, green, magenta plus/minus control, TMO2 CRMX, and it's 62.8 pounds with the yoke installed. 4-zone pixel mapping, especially cool for virtual production, support for Profoto Air and Profoto Air flash triggers, and finally, multiple dimming curves, linear, exponential, logarithmic, and S-curve. At 28.5 kilograms or 62.8 pounds, the lamp head is certainly beefy, and I found it safer lifted by two. I found it manageable to move around on my own with care, but true heroes will always take a helping hand. It goes without saying that a combo stand at a minimum is required to mount the 3x2, bonus points for wheels. However, do keep in mind there is no pesky external ballast. Perhaps a small factor, but one that I appreciate compared to other instruments, the 3x2 can easily stand on its side on the ground without the need to rest it in awkward positions that could result in damage to buttons or the exterior casing. This is thanks to its boxy design and protective pads and pipe on all sides that extend beyond the lamp head itself. I was able to easily attach the included yoke to the lamp head, and both handles are simple friction mechanisms with a standard 1 1/8 inch junior pin at the base. I encountered zero slipping from the yoke throughout filming, and you're able to easily achieve all sorts of different angles, including mounting in portrait mode if desired. In short, the 3x2 lamp head design never fought me when rigging. 5 large fan units dominate the back of the ProPanel 3x2. These cooling fans are a part of a patent-pending technology created by Profoto called C-Tech. Not much information is available online explaining how C-Tech operates, but I'm guessing the primary design considerations were weight to cooling ratio and probably reducing the overall noise. Speaking of fan noise, you can select max when filming in hot environments or silent in a cooler environment. Silent mode will limit the light output to 200 watts, however. In practice, I never noticed the fans when set to auto, and I never heard any of that distracting ramp up or slow down noise either, which some fixtures are prone to when set to auto. The 3x2 is easy to pick up the first time and just throw onto your next production with a 5-minute firmware update. Considering the range of features, it's honestly impressive how streamlined and approachable this fixture is right out of the box. We should tackle the question of powering the brightest soft LED panel in the world, and thankfully the 3x2 can be powered off of household power as noted by Profoto, as long as you meet the minimum 10 amp fuse requirements at 200 to 240 VIC or 15 amp at 100 to 120 VIC. But there is a tiny caveat for USA-based crew. The Profoto ProPanel 3x2 ships with a PowerCon NEMA 520p plug to users in the United States to comply with regulatory law. I'll be the first to say I'm not a gaffer or electrician by trade, but the NEMA 5 to 20p cable will physically not allow users to accidentally plug into a standard 15 amp household outlet. Just won't fit. Now, there are some rare dual-purpose outlets in the US that allow for both 15 amp and 20 amp plugs interchangeably. There is a workaround. You could use an Edison NEMA 15 amp PowerCon cable in a regular home and hop into the menu and limit the input and thus limit the overall output too. Alternatively, you could use an affordable 20 amp to 15 amp adapter. This gives you added flexibility for filming in all types of different environments with a variety of available power inputs. The ProPanel 3x2 power input setting is set to auto as standard in the menu and will detect the power input and throttle down or up as necessary to avoid tripping a given circuit. I wish that Profoto would tell you in the menu what auto was detecting and limiting the wattage to, but currently you can only see your wattage indicated in the upper left of the main menu when you directly select 1600 watt or 1200 watt and so on. Profoto lists the power and current consumption at a max of 2200 watts, max 17.7 amps in their posted technical specs. Filming on location, few different block batteries can handle the power draw of the Profoto 3x2, but Profoto particularly calls out the InstaGrid 1 Max as a capable battery for getting the juice to a single 3x2. At the end of the day, anyone filming in a studio or on a soundstage won't have to worry too much about having access to 20 amp power. You'll also find 20 amp outlets in many laundry rooms or kitchens. Finding true soft LED panel competitors to the Profoto ProPanel 3x2 is tricky because of its native 120-degree beam angle and 2000 watts of power. The highest output competitors in the LED space tend to have significantly narrow beam angles, thus creating harder and higher output sources, and that makes for a tricky direct comparison. But here are just a few that come pretty close. Cream Source Vortex 24, $16,999, 1950 watts, almost 120 pound weight, 20-degree beam angle, 24 pixel zones. Airy Sky Panel S360C LED, $16,580, 1600 watts, 105-degree beam angle, 163 pounds. Airy Sky Panel X23, $19,900, 3 X21 2x1 panels stacked together, and a single X21 weighs 44 pounds. Godox P1200R Hard Pro RGB LED light panel, 5,290, 1200 watt, heavier versus the 3x2, 53-degree beam angle. There's also a healthy debate to be had about stacking multiple smaller panels together, in the case of Airy's X23s, to achieve a larger fixture. Is that really a good one-to-one comparison to the ProPanel 3x2? Light Panels enters the chat by selling arrays of their 2x1 Gemini fixtures united in a cluster of 4. That configuration will run you about $23,560. The S360 Sky Panel C, while significantly heavier at a whopping 163 pounds, does come close to the 3x2 in terms of beam angle and power, but that plus 100-pound increase is a rough trade-off for the output. In short, the Profoto ProPanel 3x2 really is in a league of its own and wins the output to weight ratio compared with competitors at a more affordable cost. Now, how weatherproof is the 3x2? Without treading too far into the various meanings of the IP rating system, the 3x2 luckily has a IP65 designation that means the lamp head is protected from low pressure jets from any direction and is, quote, dust tight, end quote. This isn't quite as robust as the IP66 rating for the ARRI SkyPanel X series. Any crew using a 3x2 in the rain could do so without much concern or need for additional weather protection. Rugged weatherproofing is notable because I see leaning on the 3x2 while shooting outdoors or lighting interiors by placing this instrument outside a window. Being able to set a light outside a window on location and know it is protected is a big deal for me, and I expect for most G&E camera departments out there. However, who are we kidding? If you're spending $15,000 on a brand new Profoto light and it starts to rain, you're gonna throw a tarp over it no matter what Profoto says about its weatherproofing. Okay, moving on to controlling the light. The bright rear screen is easily viewable in daylight. The display brightness can even be dimmed in the event that you're seeing unwanted reflections in your shot. Profoto clearly put a lot of thought into how best to navigate the UI and the menu system as a whole. There are two main control knobs to scroll around. It's all very quick and intuitive. No settings feel buried or out of place. The ProPanel 3x2 features built-in 5-pin DMX, TMO2 CRMX, Bluetooth, and Profoto Air Control. Simply turn on wireless or Bluetooth in the menu, and you're good to go. Firmware is easily updated over Bluetooth, but you could use the USB port in a pinch for updates too. Profoto appears to regularly release firmware updates, which creates the impression that they're always optimizing, which I like. You could also use the Profoto Control desktop app as well, but this is a very similar user experience to the phone app, just with more visible real estate. Up to you and your workflow, they both work great. Currently, you can't control the 4 different pixel zones of the 3x2 independently in the Bluetooth Profoto app. I asked the Profoto team about this, and they are planning to add that functionality in a firmware update coming, quote, later this year, end quote. So, after all of this, who is the ProPanel 3x2 meant for? I try with all my reviews to give you a sense of my point of view. I'm a union director of photography, most often working out of my home base in Southern California. However, I also travel about 50% of the time and have to take gear on planes. For the last decade or so, I'm rarely ever a one-man band. This Profoto ProPanel 3x2 is not aimed at solo users. That's not to say the 3x2 couldn't be handled on a set by a single person operation. It would probably be overkill though if you're running both audio and video on a small corporate video shoot. That said, take what is useful for you and set aside what isn't. Let's circle back to the subject at which we all love to shake our fists, the price. At $14,999, this is a rental item for most. I mentioned that at the top. Owners of a sizable G&E truck may enjoy having 1 or 2 of these on board. Rental houses and studios will love the ProPanel 3x2 simply because of the output, wide range of wireless control options, and sturdy build quality mixed with a very buyer-friendly 3-year warranty that Profoto offers with the purchase. Given the weight and overall dimensions and current lack of a molded foam hard case for transport, I wouldn't call the Profoto 3x2 an airline-friendly option. For something more airline-friendly while staying within the Profoto family, I'd suggest the L600C with a softbox. Only time will tell, but this fixture makes me feel the way I did about the original SkyPanel back in 2015. It feels like an answer to a question you didn't even know you had. It will work forever on my projects and never skip a beat. Long after the investment recoups its kit fees or rentals, it will likely keep on trucking for many years. Of course, Profoto has an education hurdle with the pro user base. They are at the beginning of convincing gaffers and DPs that they are firmly planted in the pro cinema LED segment. Hopefully for them, these folks will begin requesting more Profoto rentals, but they have a ways to go. Profoto will also need to provide solid service options across the major global film markets. I'm seeing more and more lighting brands take hits online for long response times and slow service turnaround times. Moving on to accessories. Usually, I don't care for accessories directly made by lighting manufacturers. Instead, I'm drawn to third-party providers like DOP Choice or Shamira because they offer better build quality and faster setup times. Sadly, they are often more expensive. Lately though, lighting manufacturers have upped their game after 1 or 2 generations of kind of dubious accessory launches. I really don't love taking risks on new diffusion or grids when I know exactly what my long-vetted pieces of kit are going to do to shape, filter, or diffuse light. You can imagine my welcome surprise then when I first opened Profoto's softbox designed for the ProPanel and learned it was built in collaboration with DOP Choice. Trust me when I tell you that most of my other softboxes and grids have eventually broken or frayed over time, with the exception of my DOP Choice accessories. There is a reason they are rental house standards worldwide. The $995 Snapbag M uses a proprietary speed clamp system for mounting to the ProPanel. It took me a second to figure it out, but once you get the hang of it, there is much to like about this system. I was worried the speed clamp would slip or be prone to breaking, but it doesn't feel fragile at all. Plus, a solo operator could mount the full softbox with zero assistance by simply affixing one clamp at a time. The little plastic piece in the middle of the speed clamp is a locking mechanism that allows the clamp to expand and then securely lock down to the exterior of the 3x2. It's simple and it's well engineered. I'd love to see that idea expanded to future Profoto products. In fact, this clamp softbox system feels faster to build than the circular style of softboxes most often associated with bones-mounted fixtures. Expanding those other circular softboxes just take time. The compatible grid, called the SnapGrid M, also a DOP Choice collaboration, will set you back an additional $695 and will narrow your beam spread from 120 degrees to 40 degrees. It's also very fast to add to the front of the softbox and relies on industrial strength Velcro to affix to the Snapbag M. Panned and tilted the 3x2 all over the place during testing, and the accessories never slipped once. Want to widen your beam angle while softening? Profoto also makes a separate dome diffusion accessory for $350. I also want to highlight an interesting accessory solution from Profoto. The $149 Profoto Mask Kit allows you to cover different portions of your ProPanel softbox to shape the light on your subject in unique ways. I'm especially interested in how the Mask Kit changes the quality of the light on faces and how helpful it is for control during product shoots. It does feel like a more elegant solution for precise control versus building a whole maze of small flags. Okay. Now it's testing time. I grabbed a few measurements on my Sekonic C700U spectrometer with the latest firmware, now updated with the C800U, to see how accurately the ProPanel 3x2 handles color temp measured in Kelvin and output, lux or foot candle, from a distance of 3.3 feet or 1 meter in CCT mode, keeping in mind the wide 120-degree beam throw. All testing was completed at the full 20 amp, 2000 watt power input with output set to max rather than constant in the menu. Aiming for a target of 5600K, we ended up reading a 5601 out of the fixture. About as perfect as it gets. These are also truly blinding output numbers. For comparison, the manufacturer provided Vortex 24 output numbers at 5600K at 3.3 feet are 96,350 lux. Again though, the Vortex 24 has a significantly narrower 20-degree beam angle, giving that light an advantage in output, but creating a much harder light quality. Now for a test with 3200K as the target. A reading of 3171 is again excellent accuracy, given the aim of a 3200K target. The output is also fairly consistent compared with the previous 5600K test, Not always the case in my past tests. Finally, the above graph asks how the ProPanel 3x2 fares when we look at how it replicates color accurately. With a target of 5600K, these results are excellent. Want to compare these results with the L600C? Go ahead and check out my review on CineD.com. Okay, comparing a soft panel to a cob light is a bit of an apples to oranges pairing, but considering we just reviewed another Profoto product, some of you might be curious. Okay, time for a few final thoughts. I brought the Profoto ProPanel 3x2 to a lighting workshop I was teaching in LA, and it was interesting to see the reactions from attendees who ranged from multi-decade DOPs to creative directors. Any initial skepticism eventually gave way to interest about the creative potential for the ProPanel series, and that was without any prodding from me. However you may feel about the cost or about Profoto as a newcomer to the cinema space, this light is a head-turner. The ProPanel 3x2 is aimed at larger commercial, film, and television productions. We are already seeing these fixtures end up on larger scripted projects such as the upcoming Superman film and the Baywatch reboot. Early SkyPanel adoption in 2015 went much the same way. A handful of cinematographers would add a few, and then they came to regard them as staples. Then the trend caught on until even smaller productions have access to what became the flagship LED instrument at the time. If you want to try out the 3x2 for yourself, I'm told you can already find the fixture at Panelux in Europe and at MBS in America. Special thanks to Sigma USA for hosting us in their beautiful showroom in Los Angeles. Give them a call if you want to demo one of their cinema or photo lenses. Okay, that's it. Want us to do more lighting reviews just like this? I hope you do. Like and subscribe below. Thanks, everybody.